Hey everybody, welcome back to No More, No Less. I'm Michael Chikeen, and today in the virtual studio, I have with me Brendan Kwiatkowski. Was that right? How did
Pretty close. Kwiatkowski.
Kwiatkowski? Wow, not close at all. I found Brendan on Instagram producing reel after reel, speaking about his PhD research into the social emotional development of boys. Insight after insight, where his findings were so emotionally echoed in the comments by boys and men and the people who love them. And Brendan is an educator, he's a researcher, a speaker, specializing in the social, emotional development and well being of boys and men. His research spans multiple disciplines such as psychology, sociology, and education. He received his PhD in education from the University of Edinburgh, where he studied the emotions, masculinities, and schooling experiences of Canadian teenage boys. So today we're going to discuss Brendan's research so he can help all of us better understand what boys and men are currently facing in today's modern age and how all of us might be able to help. Brendan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Should have went over that last name before we started because that's a good one.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even feel like I say it right half the time.
um, I guess I wanted to start with because I know what people study and what they do their PhDs, and sometimes, especially in the social sciences, can be really personal. And so I was just curious, how did you find your way into that topic? Because you can tell that you're really passionate about it, and so I was wondering how you settled on what your thesis was going to be.
Yeah, on the surface level of that answer is I was a high school teacher and I was doing my master's in special education, came across, I really was interested in students who were diagnosed with emotional and behavioral disorders, in part because one of my favorite students had died from suicide the year before starting my master's. And another reason is that I found that teachers are the most negatively biased towards those type of students as opposed to any other type of special needs category. And part of the reason for that is that they think it's more of a classroom management issue, and it's really hard to have empathy for things that seem to go on inside someone's head. Like, for instance, teachers are generally way more accepting of being like, oh, someone's in a wheelchair, I can accommodate that. Whereas if it's like an internal emotional, behavioral, mental illness type thing, yeah, that's partly why they're the most negatively biased. And then I found out that 81% of those students in that category are male. And that really stood out to me. And I started researching, okay, how much is biology? How much is socialization and things like that. And then I led a program for grade 11 boys with diverse emotional behavioral needs. And that was a really powerful experience. And it kind of made me realize that a lot of the conversations around masculinity, which were increasing at that time I was doing my master's in the public sphere, how they were not capturing the complexity of the situation, most of the conversations around boys, men, and masculinity. And so for my PhD research, I really wanted to focus on like how important is the emotional expression of of teenage boys to their development, and why are some boys emotionally restricted and some boys aren't. And then looking back at a deeper layer, because that's just the academic reasons, kind of how I got into this journey. But the deeper level is I've always just been interested in gender, grew up with a ton of gendered messages growing up in the church about like women, can women be pastors or not? Do they have spiritual authority or not? And so I was always just remember like hearing a ton of adults in my life debate gender roles, and not like the physical differences between men and women, but the more non-physical roles that men should be like this, women should be like that. And that was always interesting to me. And then at a deeper level, probably why I focus on teenage boys particularly is because one of the most important things I would want people to know about teenage boys is how lonely teenage boys are, and many of them feel in their experience. And that's not necessarily meaning they don't have friends. Some of them have tons of friends, but they still feel alone in their experience and want guidance and want direction. And I think there's a paucity of direction and guidance for boys these days. And I was a teenage boy that was also lost and alone, even though I had lots of friends and I wouldn't look it from the outside. And so that's probably why I care about that age group particularly.